Pleasant day to everyone and welcome. My name is John, part of Group 2, and in today's discussion, we will focus on demand, supply, and market equilibrium. Here are the contents of the module: concept of demand, concept of supply, equilibrium between market demand and supply, changes in the market demand and supply, and elasticity of market. In the next slide, after the completion of the unit, we students are expected to be able to explain the relationship between demand, supply, and its various determinants, solve different demand and supply functions and equations, create demand and supply schedules and curves, formulate a market equilibrium from findings in market demand and supply examples, solve various situational changes to demand, supply, and the price of a commodity, and identify different types of elasticity of market, demand, and supply and their interpretations.
Good day everyone, my name is Maria Zaaraan Olanday and I'm the one who assigned to report the market, buyers, and sellers. So first, ano nga ba ang meaning ng market? It is the process of buyers and sellers exchanging goods and services. Ideally, a market is a place where two or more parties are involved in buying and selling. May iba't ibang uri ng market. Una na dito ang physical markets. Physical market is a setup where buyers can physically meet the sellers and purchase the desired merchandise from them in exchange of money. Example is shopping malls, department stores, retail stores, and physical market are example of physical markets. Second is non-physical markets or virtual markets. In such markets, buyers purchase goods and services through internet. In such a market, the buyers and sellers do not meet or interact physically. Instead, the transaction is done through internet. Examples is Rediff Shopping, eBay, Shopee, Lazada, and etc. Next is auction market. In an auction market, the seller sells his goods to one who is the highest bidder. Next is market for intermediate goods. Such markets sell raw materials required for the final production of other goods. Next is black market. A black market is a setup where illegal goods like drugs and weapons are sold. Next is knowledge market. Knowledge market is a setup which deals in the exchange of information and knowledge-based products. And last is financial market. Market dealing with the exchange of liquid assets or money is called a financial market. And dito na rin pumapasok ang buyer at seller, wherein the buyers is the person who buys the goods or services from the seller. He or she is the customer who makes use of the goods to meet the needs and wants of the family and chooses the right quality of goods that will best satisfy the needs and wants. And ang seller naman ay ang owner of the store or business establishment. He or she offers goods, products, or services to those who need it. And he or she sells goods, products, or services at a specified amount called selling price in exchange for money. Merong tinatawag na monopoly. Ito yung isang condition where there is a single seller and many buyers at the marketplace. In such a condition, the seller has a monopoly with no competition from others and complete control over the products and services. And dito rin sa monopoly market, ang seller ang nagde-decide ng price of the product or service and can change it on his own. And sa monopsony, ito naman yung market from where there are many sellers but a single buyer is called monopsony. In such a setup, since there is a single buyer against many sellers, the buyer can exert his control on the sellers. The buyer in such a form has an upper edge over the sellers. Thank you.
Ako nga pala si Joary Limbon at ito ang aking report. What is the law of demand? The law of demand is sometimes observed behavior is so pervasive it is called the law of demand. For example, according to the law of demand, the quantity of a goods or service demanded varies inversely negative with its price ceteris paribus. More directly, the law of demand says that other things being equal, when the price of a good or service fall, the quantity demand increases. Conversely, if the price of a good services rises, the quantity demand will decreases. Madaling salita, kapag tumaas ang presyo ng isang produkto, bababa ang demand para sa parehong produkto. Okay.
Hi everyone, I am Ashley Marie Hige and I will be discussing the individual demand schedule, market demand curve, and individual demand curve. Let's start off with individual demand schedule. The individual demand schedule shows the relationship between the price of the good and the quantity demanded. It is a list of various quantities of a commodity which an individual consumer purchases at different alternative prices in the market at given time. The corresponding value on the demand schedule is the sum of all consumers' quantities demanded at that price. Like the example here, how many pounds of coffee would Elizabeth be willing and able to buy at the various prices during the year? At the price of $3 a pound, Elizabeth buys 15 pounds of coffee over the year. If the price gets higher at $4 per pound, she might buy only 10 pounds. But if it's lower, say $1 per pound, she might be able to buy 25 pounds of coffee during the year. Say for another example, how many detergents Carol will be willing to buy or be able to buy at the various prices in a month. Let's say for 7 pesos, she can buy 2 dozens of detergents in a month. If the price gets higher at 8 pesos, she might only buy a dozen. If it gets lower for 6 pesos, she might buy 3 dozens of detergents in a month. So basically, individual demand schedule is a correlation between the price and the demand. That if the price get higher, the demand will go down and vice versa. The second one is the market demand curve. The market demand curve is the horizontal summation of all the individual demand curves in a given market. It shows the quantity demanded of the good by all individuals at the varying price points. For example, a $10 latte, the quantity demanded by everyone in the market is 150 lattes per day. At a $4, the quantity demanded by everyone in the market is 1,000 lattes per day. So the market demand curve gives the sum quantity demanded by everyone in the market for every price point. And the market demand curve is typically graphed downward sloping because as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. And lastly, the individual demand curve. It is the graphical representation that shows the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. And by plotting the different prices and corresponding quantities demanded, we can create the individual demand curve. In that curve, we can see that when the price is higher, the quantity demanded is lower. And when the price is lower, the quantity demanded is higher. So, meaning to say, demand curve shows how the quantity of goods demanded changes as its price differ.
Hi everyone, I'm going to discuss the most complicated topic of economics, which is the ceteris paribus, meaning all other variables remain constant. So when we say variables remain constant, what does it mean? Well, let me give you an example. So the height of a 4-year-old boy and the red shirt that he is wearing. So the height of a 4-year-old boy is a variable due to the fact that it will change over a period of time. And the shirt that he is wearing is constant since its own size and color will still remain the same. Again, a variable changes its value from time to time depending on the circumstances and factors, while constant does not change its values and will continuously remain the same. Now, how can we understand the ceteris paribus in economics and different fields? So, ceteris paribus is a Latin phrase with the meaning of all other things being equal. It's a way to describe what variables are changing and what variables remain constant in a given situation. Typically, ceteris paribus is used in economics and finance when discussing the cause and effect. But there are many factors that can also influence the results or outcomes of the cause and effects. But using ceteris paribus puts all other factors on hold while focusing only on one. Consider the laws of supply and demand as yet another illustration. According to economists, the rule of demand shows that ceteris paribus, more items typically tend to be bought at lower prices, and moreover, ceteris paribus prices will probably increase if demand for any given product exceeds supply. After explaining the ceteris paribus in economics and different fields, how can we apply it in modern situations? For example, if the market increases the price of the product, we apply ceteris paribus to determine what will happen to the demand. Another question that may arise in certain situations, like what will happen if the minimum wages increases? Ceteris paribus, what will happen to productivity? Obviously, ceteris paribus will have its own limitations. And now, let's imagine the cost of fruits goes up. Consumers have a higher probability to purchase less fruits, and this presumption shows how the factors that are included can be sometimes ignored, like how the household income acts, or non-economic considerations like the health advantages of fruits. Generally speaking, if a product is more expensive, only fewer people will purchase it. And some economists might claim that raising the minimum wage increases unemployment, expanding the money supply leads to inflation, lowering operating costs enhances economic profitability for businesses, or implementing rent controls regulations in a city results in a reduction in the quantity of housing options. Ceteris paribus permits all other variables to remain constant, focusing on the impact of only one, and these results can of course be affected by a variety of circumstances. And after discussing the complicated topic, I hope you guys understand what is the real meaning behind the ceteris paribus and its application to economics and circumstances in the economy. That's all. Thank you for listening.
I am Isa Lewalog Basher, and the next topic is the law of supply. In a market, the answer to the fundamental question, what do we produce and in what quantities, depends on the interaction of both buyers and sellers. The willingness and ability of sellers to provide goods are equally important factors that must be weighed by decision makers in all societies. As with demand, the price of the good is an important factor. And just as with demand, factors other than the price of the good are also important to sellers, such as the cost of inputs or advances in technology. While behavior will vary among individual sellers, economics expect that other things being equal, the quantity supplied will vary directly with the price of the good, a relationship called the law of supply. According to the law of supply, the higher the price of the good, the greater the quantity supplied, and the lower the price of the good, the smaller the quantity supplied, ceteris paribus. The relationship described by the law of supply is a direct or positive relationship because the variables move in the same direction. A positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. Firms supplying goods and services want to increase their profits, and the higher the price per unit, the greater the profitability generated by supplying more of that good. For example, if you were a coffee grower, would not you much rather be paid $5 a pound than $1 a pound, ceteris paribus? When the price of coffee is low, the coffee business is less profitable. And less coffee will be produced, some sellers may be shut down, reducing their quantity supplied to zero if the price is low enough. Tulad ng demand, ang supply ay mahalaga rin kung gaano karami ang kaya at gusto i-produce ni seller sa market. Bali po sa market, kapag mas mataas ang presyo, edi mataas din ang supply. Syempre, if ikaw po yung seller at magbebenta ka ng produkto na mataas na halaga, di ba mas gugustuhin mong magbenta nun ng mas madami para mas kumita at napalago pa ang iyong negosyo? Sa kabilang banda, if mababa ang presyo, mababa din ang supply. For example, kung sa palengke ang tinda mo ay asin at asukal, alam naman natin na mas mababa ang presyo ng asin kumpara sa asukal, kaya mas pipiliin nating damihan yung supply ng asukal para mas marami kang kitain.
An individual supply curve is a graphical representation that shows the positive relationship between the price and quantity supplied. To illustrate the concept of an individual supply curve, consider the amount of coffee that an individual seller, Juan Valdez, is willing and able to supply in 1 year. The law of supply can be illustrated like the law of demand by a table or graph. Juan's supply schedule for coffee is shown in Exhibit 4A. The combination of price and quantity supply were then plotted and going to create the individual supply curve shown in Exhibit 4B. Note that individual supply curve is upward sloping as you move from left to right. At higher prices, there will be a greater quantity supplied, other things being equal. That is, existing firms or growers will produce more at higher prices than at lower prices. So, as you can see in Table A, price per pound and quantity supplied grams per year. Dito makikita nyo yung unit kada year and yung price na per pound. Then, dito naman sa Table B, makikita nyo kung paano tumataas. Makikita rin dito yung price per pound and yung pounds per year. And yun ngayon nakikita natin yung slope curve na tinatawag. So, ayun, dagdag to lang. Sa example na to, sabi nga dito, at higher prices, there will be a greater quantity supply. Dito nga sa example na to, nakita naman natin din sa table B na pataas nga yung slope curve niya, which is true naman din sa definition ng individual supply.
The market supply curve is a graphical representation of the amount of goods and services that sellers are willing and able to supply at various prices. Also, The market supply curve may be thought of as the horizontal summation of the supply curves for individual firms. The market supply curve shows how the total quantity supplied varies positively with the price of a good, while holding constant all other factors that affect how much the producers are able and willing to supply. The market supply schedule, which reflects the total quantity supplied at each price by all of the coffee producers, is shown in Exhibit 5A. Exhibit 5B illustrates the resulting market supply curve for this group of coffee producers. Here is the table. As we can see, the individual market supplier, which is 1, and all the other producers, their supplies, we just need to add it in order to get the total market supply. And like there, for example, for the price of $1 per pound of coffee, we can see that 1 supplied 10 pounds, while other producers supplied a total of 990 pounds. So if we add it together, we will get the market supply, which is 1,000 pounds for the price of $1. Now we will be moving on to shifts in the supply curve. A change in quantity supplied versus a change in supply. Similarly, change in supply, whether an increase or a decrease, can occur for reasons other than the changes in the price of the product itself. Just as changes in demand may be due to factors or determinants other than the price of the good. In other words, a change in price of the good in a question is shown as a movement along a given supply curve, leading to a change in quantity supplied. A change in any other factor that can affect seller behavior, like sellers' input prices, the prices of related products, expectations, number of sellers, and technology, results in a shift in the entire supply curve. This is called a change in supply. As we can see, like here, variables, price of the good itself, sellers' input prices, price of related products, expectations, number of sellers, technology, can all lead to a change in variable causes. Only the price of the good itself can produce a positive movement in the supply curve, while the rest goes against the supply curve's movement, which causes a shift in the supply curve.
So, hi everyone, I am Jason Mercado and this is Shifts in Supply Spent. So, what is shifts in supply? Shift in supply means a change in the quantity supplied at every price. For example, we say we have an initial supply curve for a certain kind of car. Now, imagine we're gonna make a car. So, the main ingredient of the car, the main important ingredient or the important ingredient in the car is steel. So if the steel if the quantity or the quality of steel rises, producing a car becomes more expensive. There are two ways the supply curve can shift. We say there is an increase in supply when the curve shifts rightward at any given price. Producers supply a larger quantity of the good than before. Or when there is a decrease in a supply, there is a leftward shift in the supply curve. At any given price, producers supply a smaller quantity of the good than before. So, these shifts are shown in Exhibit 6. We now look at some of the possible determinants of supply, factors that determine the position of the supply curve in greater depth. There are the number of variables that can shift the supply curve, but here are some of the most important. It might be helpful to remember the word spent. This acronym can help you remember the 5 principal factors that shift the supply curve for a good or service. So what does spent mean? Spent, S stands for changes in sellers' input prices. P stands for changes in the prices of related goods and services. E stands for changes in expectations. And stands for changes in the number of sellers. And T stands for changes in technology. And that's for the shifts in supply spent. Thank you very much.
Good day everyone, I am Hanaya Makabalang from BSBM1G. I'm here today to talk to you about changes in supply versus changes in quantity supplied revisited.
Changes in supply versus change in quantity supplied revisited. If the price of the good changes, it leads to a change in the quantity supplied ceteris paribus. The quantity supplied of a good or service is the amount of goods or services that sellers are willing to sell at a specific price during a specific period, while other factors remaining constant. If one of the other factors influences sellers' behavior, we say it results in a change in supply. For example, if production costs rise because of a wage increases or higher fuel cost, other things remaining constant, we would expect a decrease in supply that is a leftward shift in the supply curve. Unrise in wages increases labor supply through the substitution effect while decreasing it through the income effect. Thus, the labor supply curve for an individual may have sections that are vertical, sections that are positively sloped, sections that are negatively sloped, or both. Although there are occasional exceptions, the labor supply curves for particular labor market are typically upward sloping, a change in worker preferences, a change in non-labor income, a change in the cost of associated goods and services, a change in population, or a change in expectation will cause the supply curve for labor to alter. Alternatively, if some variables such as lower input prices causes the cost of production to fall, the supply curve will shift to the right. Exhibit 7 illustrates the effect of some of the determinants that cause shifts in supply curve. A change in supply leads to a shift in the supply curve, which is an imbalance in the market that is corrected by changing prices and demand. An increase in the change in supply shifts the supply curve to the right, while a decrease in the change in supply shifts their supply curve left. Essentially, there is an increase or decrease in the quantity supplied that is paired with the higher or lower supply price. These are some of the most important variables that affect how much producers are willing to produce and sell. Remember, changes in the price of the good itself and all the other variables that influence sellers are held constant. Cost movements along a given curve, changing quantity supplied, a change in any of these other variables shifts the curve, causing a change in supply. When all other factors that affect sellers are held constant, changes in price of a good cause movements along a certain curve. Changing the quantity supplied, any one of these addition factors can change and cause the curve to move, changing the supply.
Thank you for presenting that, Hanaya. Good day, everyone. I am Joseph Kizana, and I will be discussing the critical role of price. As you can see on the screen, the existence of market equilibrium entails that anyone who wants to purchase a product's current price can do so, and anyone who wants to sell its current price could do so as well. As you can see on the screen, the existence of market equilibrium entails that anyone who wants to purchase a product's current price can do so, and anyone who wants to sell its current price could do so as well. Within the succeeding chapters, we will be tackling topics about how the impact of non-price determinants alter market outcomes and other more. However, as of the moment, we shall focus more on the importance of price and how it connects to supply and demand. Equilibrium price and quantity. What is equilibrium price and quantity? Before we jump to its definition, we must first understand the intersection of market supply and market demand curve is where the market equilibrium is located. The equilibrium price is the price found at the intersection of market supply curves and market demand curve. And the equilibrium quantity is the quantity found within the market supply curve and market demand curve. At the equilibrium price, the amount that buyers are willing and able to buy is exactly equal to the amount that sellers are willing and able to produce. The best way to comprehend the equilibrium market solution is with the aid of a straightforward graph. Let's revisit the supply and demand example of coffee from earlier discussion. If you would notice, Exhibit 8 combines the market demand curve for the coffee with the market supply curve, shortage and surplus. As shown in Exhibit 9, what happens if the market price and equilibrium price are not equal? Assuming that the market price is higher than the equilibrium price at $4 per pound, the quantity of coffee demanded would be 3,000 pounds. However, the quantity supplied would be 7,000 pounds. At this price, a surplus or a quantity supplied would exist. That is at this price. Growers would be willing to sell more coffee than demanders would be willing to buy. To eradicate the unwanted surplus, frustrated sellers have an incentive to cut their price to attract more buyers and cut back on production. Cutting the price will simultaneously increase the quantity demanded and decrease quantity supplied. Note that the changes in quantity demanded and quantity supplied are movements along the supply and demand curves, not shifts in the curves. This adjustment will continue to reduce the surplus as long as the price is above the equilibrium price at $3. However, what would happen if the market price of coffee were below the equilibrium price? As seen in Exhibit 9, at $2 per pound, the yearly quantity demanded of 7,000 pounds would be greater than the 3,000 pounds that producers would be willing to supply at the low price. So, at $2 per pound, a shortage or excess quantity demanded of 4,000 pounds would exist. Some consumers are lucky enough to find coffee, but others are not able to find any sellers who are willing to sell them coffee at $2 per pound. Some frustrated consumers may offer to pay sellers more than $2. In addition, sellers noticing that there are disappointed consumers will be more than willing to raise their price. That is, with many buyers chasing a few goods, sellers can respond to the shortage by raising prices without the fear of losing sales. This action by the buyers and sellers causes the market price to rise. As the market price rises, the quantity demanded falls and the quantity supplied rises. Notice that these are movements along with the supply and demand curves that moves the market towards the equilibrium. Going back to our earlier discussion of Adam Smith's invincible hand, here it is being used. Sometimes there might be too much supplied, while at other times there might not be enough. But over time, these markets will be corrected by the process of adjustment in supply and demand, which comprises the invincible hand of the market. So whether the price starts off too high or too low, the activities of many buyers and sellers will move the market towards equilibrium. Once equilibrium reached, buyers and sellers are satisfied in their ability to buy and sell at that price, and there is no longer any pressure on prices. If you are wondering how quickly do markets adjust to equilibrium, it depends on the type of market. But in most cases, competitive markets, shortages, and surplus tend to be temporary. That it is permanent. Thank you.
Don't confuse scarcity and shortages. Most people are confused over these two different economic problems. And now I'm here to discuss this topic for you guys to understand its differences and how it affects the market and economy. So scarcity is caused or produced by nature, which means all natural resources may be limited because this is something that is very difficult to reproduce. Kinds of resources such as precious metals of gold, silver, fossil fuel, and even water For us to eliminate and prevent natural resources scarcity, we must put our best effort to use the three factors of production. The first one is land. This is where all natural resources within the land, and we must restore, preserve, and remediate it. Second is labor, human effort or activities that are affecting the reproduction of natural resources. And third is capital, wherein human-made resources were used to create other resources like machines, tools, and buildings. But remember that none of these factors are unlimited. That's why studying economics can help us to properly think of the best possible ways to allocate and utilize the resources. Last is to determine how we're going to make use of a small amount of resources and benefit from it without wasting them. And lastly, we have is shortage. Therefore, shortages are caused by the market and only arise when there is a greater demand for a good or product at the present market than when there is supply. As long as the market or manufacturers find consumers prepared to pay more money for an item or services in low supply, shortages can be easily resolved.